The debt ceiling is the legal limit on how much the federal government can borrow to pay its bills. If Congress does not raise or suspend it by June 5, the U.S. could default on its obligations for the first time in history, triggering a global financial crisis. To avoid this scenario, President Biden and House Speaker McCarthy reached a bipartisan deal that would extend the debt ceiling until 2025 and set spending levels for the next 2 years. The deal was a compromise between the Democrats' and Republicans' demands. Democrats wanted to increase both defense and non-defense spending, while Republicans wanted to cut non-defense spending and impose policy changes on social programs and environmental regulations. The deal would suspend the debt ceiling until January 1, 2025, allowing the government to pay its bills without further congressional action. It would also set spending caps for fiscal year 2024 and 2025, limiting military spending to $886 billion and $704 billion respectively in 2024. And $895 billion and $711 billion respectively. In these numbers represent a slight increase for defense spending and a slight decrease for non-defense spending compared to the current year. McCarthy claimed that this was the first time in over a decade that spending would be cut year over year. The deal also included several policy provisions that reflected the priorities of both parties. For example, it would rescind about $28 billion in unspent COVID relief funds, eliminate $1.4 billion in IRS funding, restart federal student loan payments, and impose work requirements for food stamps and welfare recipients. On the other hand, it would preserve $80 billion in new funding for the IRS to enforce the tax code for wealthy Americans, which was part of Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. It would also overhaul the National Environmental Policy Act to streamline permitting for projects, which Republicans said would boost economic growth and job creation. The deal was not perfect for either side, but it was seen as a necessary compromise to avert a default and keep the government running. The House passed the bill on Wednesday with bipartisan support, and the Senate is expected to follow suit before the deadline. One of the most controversial aspects of the debt ceiling deal between President Biden and Speaker McCarthy is the changes to the work requirements for food stamps and other welfare programs. These changes affect millions of Americans who rely on these programs for basic needs. Food stamps, also known as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, provide monthly benefits to low-income households to buy food. Currently, adults who are able to work and do not have dependents must meet certain work requirements to receive SNAP benefits for more than 3 months in a 3-year period. They must either work at least 80 hours a month, participate in a work or training program, or do workfare, which is unpaid work for a public or nonprofit organization. The debt ceiling deal raises the age limit for these work requirements from 49 to 54, meaning that older adults who are still able to work will have to meet them or lose their benefits. However, the deal also creates some exceptions for certain groups, such as veterans, homeless people, and young adults who are leaving foster care. These groups will not have to meet the work requirements and will be able to receive SNAP benefits without any time limit. The deal also affects cash welfare, also known as Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF, which provides monthly cash assistance to low-income families with children. Currently, adults who receive TANF must participate in work activities for at least 30 hours a week, unless they have a child under 6 or a disability. The debt ceiling deal increases the minimum hours of work activities from 30 to 35 for most adults, and from 20 to 25 for single parents with a child under 6. The deal does not change the work requirements for Medicaid, which provides health coverage to low-income people. Medicaid recipients do not have to work or participate in any work-related activities to receive health benefits. The supporters of the new work requirements argue that they will encourage more people to find jobs and become self-sufficient, while saving taxpayer money and reducing the debt. They claim that work is the best way to fight poverty and that many people who receive welfare benefits are capable of working but choose not to. The opponents of the new work requirements argue that they will harm millions of people who are already struggling to make ends meet and face barriers to employment, such as lack of education, skills, transportation, child care, or health problems. They claim that work requirements do not increase employment or reduce poverty, but instead increase hardship and hunger. They also point out that many people who receive welfare benefits already work or are looking for work, but face low wages, unstable hours, and limited opportunities. The new work requirements are expected to face legal challenges and political opposition from some progressive Democrats and advocacy groups for the poor. They also face uncertainty about how they will be implemented by state agencies and how they will affect the eligibility and enrollment of welfare recipients. The impact of the new work requirements on the lives of millions of Americans remains to be seen.